Ginny. Whoops. So I was wondering if she knew Dr. Susan Wary. That's what that's what Susan did. Is she learned an instrument, a new instrument one year. Just
Yeah, we were just talking about the power of music for health and wellness and aging. So, okay, well, welcome everybody. This we have a small group today. We have Nikki and Patricia both had conflicts, so they'll join us on video, I'm sure, in watching this later. And I had my headphones malfunction and not work, so I'm talking to you on my computer speaker, which means if my dogs bark, you will hear them loudly. Just be warned. So.
I, I can hear you better without your what
Without
you
the
had on
headphones.
before,
Okay.
I think.
Hey, that's good to know, actually. So, Annie, before I go into slides, anybody want to start with anything you want to share about the class or life or whatever?
I still like the footsteps analogy. And my uncle just died, and
Oh,
I was talking to his two sons, and we talked about that, how this man, of course, he did it his way. We're talking about Frank Sinatra now.
Hmm.
Hmm. But he did life his way, and all of the people that he was trying to help, especially as he got older. When he died, he was 87.
Hmm.
And so I think we have to keep reminding ourselves how people affect us, but how we affect others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good intro for today's class because we're going to talk about personal legacy beliefs later. We're going to do some hands-on stuff to start. Um, okay, well, let's go ahead and jump in. So let's see.
I, I was I was thinking about something I read about reminiscence and life review
Uh-huh.
um, with the African American community. I found
Mm.
that very interesting because I worked with the African American community quite a bit in Florida, and I have a granddaughter that identifies as Black.
Mm.
She was raised by a white family, but she does life reviews in her own way. She's only a young girl, but she does it through art.
Mhm. Oh.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's a lot of ways to do this. And so this is a picture of my parents on their wedding day. And I love the
In the
picture because
50s. Was it
huh?
in the 50s? I'm
Yeah,
going,
this was 1958.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I'm going
um
by the car. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So we're all products of our parents and others in our lives. And today we're going to talk a little bit about legacy beliefs across generations. And so
Mhm.
it's a topic that if you watched my TED Talk, you know something about already. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of mattering today, as I think it's one of the more foundational concepts that speaks to mental health and wellness throughout life. We'll talk about some specifics. I'm going to continue lessons from the trenches and repeat a slide or two from last week because I was rushing at the end. Um, and then a little bit about sort of the way I've framed life review interventions, the guides that I have. And then we'll finish with legacy beliefs and for the day. So let's see. So I was really this Gordon Flett is a contemporary of mine in the field of gerontology, but I was not familiar with him and his work really until the pandemic, when I came across a couple of articles, this one and another, about this concept of mattering. And I think the pandemic brought mattering into sharp focus, particularly for older adults, because the COVID-19 illness really damaged the lives of many older persons. And he says mattering is a vital construct and a key psychological resource that's central to the human condition. And jumping to the bottom, the person who feels a persistent sense of mattering unconditionally to significant others will have a key inner resource that fuels positive responses to life challenges. What do you think about this? Anybody, because I can't see you when I'm doing slides because otherwise there's a black bar.
I think that's true. I think that it gives everybody a purpose. When you matter, you have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And totally, it totally reflects my aunt who was passed away at 100, but so during the pandemic and before it, she kept saying she had no purpose anymore. And that was just for her who'd always had a purpose, always been active and engaged. It just was devastating because she
Yeah.
lost and couldn't understand in her, why is God keeping me here? I have no purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Marian. That's powerful and sad too. But I think it's a story that many people have told.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that I did when I was at UNE was collect data annually from volunteer older adults in our community, and some of you were part of that Legacy Scholars Program. And one of the outcomes of the data collection was the creation of some different scales to measure aspects of wellness and aging. And one of them is this UNE Mattering Scale. I self-published it. I never formally published it, but it does, I think, exist on the internet now. And I included this with the folder of items for this week, although I didn't explicitly say to fill it out. Some of you might have. And it's set up to be self-scoring. And the idea for this really came from my reading from Flett and Heisel. Heisel is the other guy who's big in this. And in their 2021 article, they say mattering is the feeling of being important to others in ways that give people the sense that they are valued and other people care about them. And so the scale, it's a research-based scale, and it includes what I consider as two components of mattering. One is interpersonal mattering, which the red text really speaks to. And the other is what I would call legacy mattering. It's the imprint that we leave, the footprints that we leave in our lives that even when we're gone, impact other people. And did any of you take this by any chance?
Mhm.
Well, now you're primed to go look for it.
Yeah.
So the beauty of the Legacy Scholars data set is that we can look at a lot of different aspects of wellness and aging. And this is a correlation table. So a correlation is a way of measuring association between different numeric scales. A correlation of 1.0 is perfect. That means they're exactly the same. So the mattering scale correlates with itself 1.0, perfect, because they're identical. A correlation of that has little stars after it is statistically significant, and so worth looking at. And negative and positive just depends on the direction. So a higher mattering score is associated with a lower depression score. And in my world of psychological research, a 0.578 correlation is really high. So does that description of statistics make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. What do you make of the fact that people with high mattering are much less likely to report being depressed?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I've been doing some presentations on loneliness, and yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe you want to use my mattering scale when you do.
Well, I was going to
talk.
ask you if I could. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. No, I love it.
Thank you. Thank
You just
you.
have to tell me what you learned from it. That's all.
Okay.
So I offer these correlations because they speak to how mattering I think is one of the foundational aspects of human wellness. So we have a negative correlation with anxiety. So people with high mattering report less anxiety. They report less cognitive concern. So if you're worrying about losing your mental faculties and aging, that's what cognitive concern is. People report less of that. They report higher mastery. So if you have high mattering, you also feel a high level of mastery in your daily living. Mastery is I can get it done. I'm capable. Look at the loneliness one. It's almost as strong as the depression.
Mhm.
People with high mattering don't feel lonely, but people with high mattering have high quality of life.
Mhm.
Now, vulnerability to disease was a scale that I added early in the pandemic, and it's really about the risk one feels to get a communicable disease, which, this scale pre-existed the pandemic, but it was a super cool scale to throw in to our data collection. There's no correlation at all with mattering. Now, I think that's a good thing because I can't think of a reason why whether I matter should have any relationship to whether I'm worrying about communicable disease. If this was a significant correlation, I would say there's something wrong with my data. So from that perspective, that's a little validity check that I kind of like.
Now, how many people were interviewed for this?
The N for these is 282.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
it's a pretty good number.
All one culture or
All Mainers, older
men?
Mainers,
All
older
men.
women and men,
Okay, great.
mostly white and mostly well educated in this sample. But that's me.
And
So,
I think I remember doing it.
yep. So what I could do is because I started collecting the mattering data before the pandemic in
Mhm.
2019, I could actually, among those that filled it out 5 times for 5 different years, which is a smaller sample,
Mhm.
and the sample size declines. So it starts at 675 in 2019. By the by the time it's in 2023, at the time I pulled the data, I had 225 responses. So that's why that. So, but and these are error bars. So these are not statistically significant changes necessarily because the error bars overlap. But look what the trend does. And we might have thought about the pandemic as ending in 2022, but we still have the sense of mattering dropping in 23. And so and if the pandemic had not happened, this should have been a flat line. There's no reason why this wouldn't be a flat line. So it's interesting we can see the impacts of the pandemic in how people think of themselves as mattering. And Marianne's story fits perfectly. So
Is
any other comments before I move on? Use the
that
scale. Have fun with
is
it.
that that decrease in mattering, sense of mattering, maybe that's because of lost relationships and friendships during the pandemic because of the isolation
Hmm.
is maybe perhaps what it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's
And,
definitely a part of it.
and the other is the loss of community engagement.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Unless you were technically savvy and able to turn life of volunteering into Zoom meetings, you were left behind. You lost your church, you lost your volunteering, you lost your sense of community and place
Yeah.
because it became, you know, I was engaged in the Lincoln County Food Initiative and all kinds of things, but that was because I was connected and I had the electronic tools to be engaged and attend meetings.
Yeah.
Lots of older people didn't have that.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. Yeah.
I think, Tom, that we're still feeling the effects of that when we look at volunteerism.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It just has not bounced back, and people aren't getting engaged as easily as they used to.
Yeah. Yeah. Historians 10, 20, 30 years from now, we'll look back and I'm sure see some really powerful patterns linked to what we're talking about.
I-
So
So,
Tom,
go
Tom, can
ahead.
I share something that I learned from my dad?
Yeah.
And what I'm wondering is how we, with our own ageism, affect the mattering scale. Because I would go to dad's after my mom died, I'd go to see dad every Sunday and we'd make a meal.
Mm,
And I thought I was being the good daughter. And I'd say,
mm,
oh, it's okay, Dad, go sit in the living room, sit down, relax. And he looked at me and he says, what am I here for? He became
mm.
my sous chef after that. I'll tell you, that was a valuable lesson for me not to include him because I should include him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and you were open, so I wouldn't, maybe it was ageism, maybe it was a personal life lesson, but you listened to the life lesson. That's good. That's
Mhm.
good.
And it reflects back to everything that Marilyn Gallucci says about learned dependence.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's correct. You're right. Very good.
We could spend a whole class session on that. So,
Yeah, we can't. Yeah.
all right, we're going to move ahead only because I have stuff to cover. So, um, I'm going to share some more of my perspectives on on how to do this work. So I shared this slide last week, but in teaching others, particularly students, I had to really think through what's the process?
Mhm.
How do you make that first contact? How do you orient and somebody to what it's going to involve? How do you obtain informed consent, particularly for a video recorded interview? How do you prep somebody ahead of time? And so my life review interview guide is a way to do that. And we'll look at that in a moment. Um, from a student perspective, then there's, when to do it, what to emphasize, scheduling and getting it done and edited. And as I said before, this is for my teaching, but a life review intervention need not be recorded to be meaningful. It really is the interaction. And I think a life review intervention has its greatest value when it taps into personal mattering. I showed this slide last week as well, but I didn't have time to talk about it much. So, um, I've said before that the interviewer or therapeutic listener role is one of listening, probably more than directing or speaking, but there is certainly a flow. And these are some of the components that I think are particularly important to any life review. Um, Exploring early life experiences and lessons, exploring the influence of key figures in one's life, progression from school to work and perhaps service. One could include, faith-based service here as well. The important relationships in life, and if you're a parent, that experience of parenthood or grandparenthood or great-grandparenthood. Even with somebody who is doing this in a hospice setting where their life window is short, they still have goals and aspirations for the future. And I think it's important to ask, what do you hope for the future? What do you wish for your future? What do you wish for others' futures close to you, even with somebody actively dying? Because to not ask that question is to, I think, limit their potential to share and explore. The question, what does it mean to you to have lived this long, is one that I absolutely love. And you can ask this question of any aged person.
Sure.
I mean, it might be weird to ask it of a 50-year-old, but you will get some really interesting answers. I asked this of a 73-year-old some years ago, and his first answer is, I expected to be dead.
Mhm.
My father died at 69, my mother died at 50. I didn't expect to be alive. And it opened this space to talk about the benefit of longer life. And so it was a real positive question. How much longer would you like to live? And this is not so much a question about years as it is about life richness and experience. Let me ask this question to the group. I'm not going to come off share, but would someone answer this?
Answer what? How much
How-
longer would you like
How
to
much
live?
longer would you like to live?
I would like to live as long as I stay healthy, even in declining years. I remember my husband's grandmother lived with the family, and she brought so much joy to us in a very
Mhm.
quiet way. You
Mhm.
know, she just was very quiet at that stage of life, but she still made quilts and Afghans and played with the cat. And my children remember her so fondly. That was their great grandmother.
Yeah.
So I'd like to live to that, but I don't want to be a burden to anybody.
Yeah. Well, and thanks, Melinda, for that, because that's the kind of answer that this often brings up. It's not, you ask this question of a 22-year-old college student, you get a number. I want to
Mhm.
live to 100. When you ask this question of somebody over age 50, typically you get a quality of life answer,
Mhm.
which we just got. And I would say we got a mattering answer. For me, I want to live as long as I still have a sense of mattering.
Mhm.
And you just beautifully described that for your grandmother. Um, the question, what do you believe about death? And I gave a talk to a group of Life Review interviewers about 10 years ago. And I said, your work is incomplete if you do not ask this question. And they are looking at me like I'm a bit crazy. But this is the universal endpoint. How could you do a life review without asking about it?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we don't get many invitations to talk about this in a safe space. So talking about death often ends up being talking about life and meaning and mattering. And then the last question, what legacy will you leave behind, which is the focus of the last 30 minutes of our class today. So we're going to do another little exercise if you were the interviewer. This is not a bad interview interaction by any means. I'm not judging it, but when you think about listening and when you choose to speak versus allowing a person to keep an idea going, or when you hear something in the discussion that might allow the person to be self-reflective on the meaning of that, this clip has some opportunities that were missed, and I'd like to talk about it. So I'm probably not going to play the whole thing for time, but we'll at least get halfway through.
When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I thought I wanted to be a nurse.
A nurse?
But then I went to school and to high school and babysat all the time, on the weekends. Didn't date a whole lot when I was in high school. And I was on National Honor Society, but my mom and dad, my mother finished high school. My dad did not.
Mm-hmm.
And so their thought in life then was, as a girl, you graduate from high school, get a job, get married, and have a family. So the idea of going to college was never thought of.
It's a different time, unless you went to nursing school, right?
Well, yeah, but even so, that would have cost money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I graduated on Friday night. But before I graduated on Friday night, I'd already had an interview for going to work, and I went to work on Monday morning.
Where did you work?
At the telephone company. Well, first of all, the job I got was at Western Electric, which was affiliated. They did the mechanical part for the telephone company. I really had applied for a job at the telephone company, and one of the other seniors beat me by 2 points, so she got the job. So I got hired by Western Electric, but then when an opening came, I was able to transfer into the telephone company.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy your work?
I did, yeah. I was a service rep and enjoyed the people I worked with. And
so high school was an okay experience?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nothing there either.
Nothing, that was not
high
a
school-
highlight of my life. It was,
Oh.
it was part of the growing up process.
Where did you meet your husband?
My husband's parents moved to Ferguson when he was 15.
Mhm.
And they moved actually in a house 3 blocks away from where my house,
Okay, now stop there. Just a short clip. Any reactions to this? If you were the interviewer, is there something you'd key in on maybe, or you tuck away to bring up later?
I noticed something that stuck out for me is when she said brought up the fact that women weren't expected to go to college at that time. I think the interviewer could have said, in retrospect, how do you feel about not going to college at that time? It might have gone off on a tangent they didn't want to go on, but I think that's important. Having been a woman who grew up in that almost just on the edge of that era, I think it's important.
Yeah. I have a comment there, but other people.
The interviewer to me was too quick to ask the next question. He didn't allow for the silence to let the second thought actually percolate and come out.
Mm-hmm.
So you lost the depth of what she might have said.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think I would want to know, knowing that she didn't go to college, what skills did she have to take the position at the electric company and then to transfer to the telephone company? What skills were important in order for her to get those jobs and keep those jobs?
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Well, and that wasn't developed. It was the other person got the job by 2 points. Two
But
points on what?
Right.
What kind of tests were they taking or using in order to select a person? I was curious.
Yeah. Well, and I think so. It's interesting. So there's a few things here. Ooh, excuse me. There's a few things here. So I agree about the issue of silence and that he was quick to respond. I think he had a list of questions in his lap. I mean, he is listening to her, but the issue of, well, girls weren't expected to go to college, he just basically chalked that up to the time and didn't think about the deeper issue about, well, how did that make you feel? And how did that influence the course of your own life, not having that opportunity? Maybe it didn't influence it much at all, but this woman didn't have the opportunity to kind of reflect on that. So,
Call center, Sharon speaking.
go ahead, Sharon.
Sorry.
So the other thing I would bring up here is the issue of curiosity. So Mary, well, one of you, and I forget now who said this, maybe it was Ginny, what was the test? Why the 2 points? And think about your own curiosity from the perspective of what will help that person self-examine and learn, not your own edification and knowing. I don't know if knowing about the specific test is important as much as that she just missed out. So the fact that she just missed out, I think, is an interesting space to look at as well in this interview. There's nothing wrong with this interview. This lady loved it. But there were missed opportunities we can see even in a short 3-minute clip.
There was something else too, Tom, that struck me is that she married the boy next door almost. and maybe
Yeah.
explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I stopped it there only because of time, because I have a lot I
Yeah.
want to get through. But yeah, if I think of it, I'll post this clip to the web so you guys if you want to watch. I hate saying you guys, all of you can watch it if you want to.
When you were younger,
All right. So this is a slide I also showed, but I didn't have time really to show it last week and talk about it. So it's the tension between fact and meaning. We just heard that the fact is the test the woman took to get the job. The meaning is the self-reflection behind that. And sometimes you end up interviewing persons, individuals, or couples. This was a couple, Millie and Bud, who had been married a long time, and they had a huge history. And I only spent an hour and a half interviewing them. I couldn't talk about many of the facts from that huge history. And actually, this is a true photo of them as newlyweds on the left. So that's actually them. Um, so when you interview somebody, you're interviewing them in a slice of time. You can't get all the facts. There's no way. But what you can do is think about how the elements you are aware of their life story have unfolded and encourage self-reflection. So I'm going to share a video clip now. This is an interview I did with Millie and Bud. So Millie is 97 here. Bud's 99. Bud is hard of hearing, so I'm talking very loud. Pay attention to Millie and pay attention to both of them. And we're going to talk about this clip.
And you've been married how many years?
78.
Would you ever have guessed that you'd be
No.
married 78 years?
No, I wouldn't have thought I lived that long.
So, married 78 years, you must have some secrets about success.
No, not that I know of.
Yeah, what keeps a marriage together 78 years?
Well, I guess just learn to give in, more or less, each one.
Doing what?
What keeps us together? All the arguing we do now, huh? We argue more now than we did our whole married life. And I think a lot of that is because he can't hear.
Yeah.
And he says I talk too fast.
That's the only trouble. Is she talks so fast, and I try to shut her up, all of them. So I shut up too. So that keeps the peace in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, it used to be never go to bed mad and always kiss her good night. But here the last couple of weeks or months, this shoulder's going out on me. And that's the one that I lay on that side facing her. And I try to lay on my back when she comes to bed now and give me a little and she turns over.
What did you hear in this little clip?
Oh. It sounds like they've come to the conclusion certain things aren't even worth arguing about. But unfortunately, his hearing loss really affects the relationship.
It does. Have you ever come across a couple married 78 years?
Never. A
Never.
long time.
Never.
Did you notice how she communicated?
I thought she was amazing for her age, her clear communication.
There's a freshness about this. This could be a couple who are in their 50s
Yeah.
Mm.
saying the exact same things.
Yeah.
Did anybody notice her mouth? She alliterated every word,
Okay.
and it allows him to read her lips because he can't hear. And I don't know to the degree to which she did that consciously, But if you'll notice when she turned to speak to him, she was very intentional about that, and he was watching her mouth.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was an amazing couple. This was about 6 months before Bud died. He died just shy of his 100th birthday. And Millie lived another 2 years to 99.
Wow.
This was the home that they settled in the 1950s, that they were still in. This was 2007. This was recorded. Um, and just a fascinating life story. One of the very strange coincidences of this interaction was I learned that Millie's maiden name is my name, Muser.
Wow.
Now, I was raised in Connecticut. She was raised in St. Louis, Missouri. We never figured out, but it's not a common name in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it always amazes me in doing this work how often these coincidences occur. It's another benefit of it, actually.
That's really neat.
So, whether you're interviewing an individual or a couple, or even a group, there's an interaction that takes place. William Randall is one of the major authors in this field, and I often in the past have assigned his work. It's just pretty heavy to read. And so this is a picture of William. He and I have communicated by email, but have never met in person. He's based in Canada. He's now retired, but still considered one of the big names in the field. And he talks in this article about how really the life story as expressed is actively shaped in the interaction. The therapeutic listener or interviewer is no mere neutral instrument for gathering objective data, but a pivotal player in a dynamic intersubjective process. Pretty heavy stuff, but I actually agree with this. What do you make of that statement?
Well, I think it's a true statement because what you get for results comes from what you try to draw out. Your questioning or listening or getting information from the person being interviewed is only as good as what the questions you ask uncover much more meaning than I don't know where to go with this, but
No, I think you're articulating it nicely, I think.
It's important to be a good listener, but it's also important to have those questions and follow-up thoughts of how to go deeper, how to find the values that will be important to the story.
Right. So when you simply work from a list of questions, so in the clip we saw earlier of the woman with sitting in front of her big furniture piece there, talking about her work as a teenager, that interview could have been more self-reflective and meaningful had the interviewer been truly listening and giving her space to think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an example, I think, of this. So you are not, in doing this work, if you do, you are not just a typical journalist doing an interview. You are a dynamic story creator with the person. I think that's kind of cool, actually.
Tom,
So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that, even though this has to do with interviewing or life story, I could relate to everything it says on that slide in the marital relationship, just sitting and talking, telling about your day or what occurred, that no listener ever hears the whole story. No teller ever tells it all, tells it. I think that's true of us in any relationship. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not. You're fine. And I realize I have a duplicate slide, so we're going to skip this one. Carl Rogers is one of my heroes in psychology. He is the parent of humanistic psychology. And, he says the kind of listening that's most valuable in this work is active listening, but it's without evaluation. And I find that interesting. So, he says, I found that there is one main obstacle to communication, people's tendency to evaluate. And so I think certainly in my work as a clinical psychologist, I'm always evaluating. But as I've shared with life story work, it's not about trying to fix somebody. It's not about me being an expert trying to evaluate. It's me joining with. It's me taking the journey with. It's me helping the person through what I say or not say to maybe self-explore a little bit more than they normally can. And so I think there is an evaluative component. And we just talked about it again with the clip of the lady and not being able to go to college, because you have to listen for those little kernels to explore deeper. But you don't have to judge them. And I think that's the difference. You just have to listen and then allow her to come up with her own answer. So the distinction here, I think that's important, is you're listening with interest. You're listening to find the elements that can build self-understanding, but you're not answering those questions yourself. As a professional, sometimes I am, but you're not as a life story interviewer. Does this make sense?
Well, it's so easy to project our own thoughts and feelings and experiences onto somebody else.
Yep.
And I think it's good that you're cautioning us not to do that. And I think about it just everyday interaction, not to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's not a right or wrong. It's being human, I think. But the example I think of with this was the young man in the interview before, again, who jumped right in. That's just the way it was for young women back then. He interjects his own viewpoint, and he makes this blanket historical statement that shuts down her self-exploration. That's listening with evaluation. That I don't like. Anyway, but I do like listening with understanding, experiencing what's expressed and the attitude behind it from the other's point of view, kind of keep understanding with a person and not simply about the person. This is the distinction between evaluation for judgment versus evaluation to move the self-exploration forward. And so we're going to do a little exercise, and I've asked two of our participants to role play for us. And we're going to meet Greta and John. So Greta is the older woman who's reviewing her life story, and John is the interviewer. So Sharon is going to be Greta, and Ginny is going to be John. And this is the script. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to stop it at various points. It's okay to have a reaction to this. And, if you laugh, it's fine. I have some teaching points to make that'll become clear as we go forward in the exercise. So, Ginny, John, you're up.
You've said that it's different being 98 years old. What do you mean by that?
Sharon, are you muted?
Unmute. How's this?
Okay, start over. You're
Okay,
reading
sorry.
because you think.
Because you think differently when you're old, differently, and when you're visiting with younger people, they don't see the things you.
Sharon, I'm going to stop you for a moment because I can't hear you. Are others hearing Sharon okay?
Not well.
No.
Sharon, are you holding paper up in front of your microphone maybe?
No. Well, let's see. Oh, hold on.
Maybe read from the screen rather than paper and speak
Yeah,
close
but
to your
I'm trying
computer.
to read from the screen. Can you hear me better now?
Much better. So let's
Okay.
start it off. Start
Let's
from the
start.
top. We're going to go back to Ginny as John.
You've said that it's different being 98 years old. What do you mean by that?
Well, because you think differently when you're old, differently, and when you're visiting with younger people, they don't see the things you see and that you enjoy. They enjoy other things. I enjoyed those things when I was young, but now when I'm old, I have my special things that I enjoy. I sit out here and look at the beautiful hillside and thank God for giving us such a beautiful world to live in and try to make the most of every minute. I meditate. I don't dwell on myself and my problems. I try to think of better things. I try to make the day a good day. Sometimes I wish I was younger and wish I had done a lot of things I didn't do. You know, you think about the past and then you have the future to think about. I wish I had been a great musician. I love music and appreciate music.
So you love music and appreciate listening to it.
I love good music. I especially like going to the opera.
You love opera?
And I've attended opera and the wonderful singing. And it is wonderful, the singing and the acting and the story. I just love red opera.
Now, what about your longtime friends and family?
Well, you see, they're all gone. I have no real close friends left, and my family's mostly my brother's children. He has two nice daughters, and they come to see me, and we have a nice visit.
Do they live near you?
Yes, they live in Duluth.
So they see you often?
Quite often. Then they're real busy girls, so.
And then you have your daughters.
And of course, she's away, thousands of miles away.
Your daughter is
I lost her. Hopefully I can move that up.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and stop there?
Okay.
I think we may pick it up and go a little longer. I really do appreciate both of my actors. Sharon, and sadly, you were very hard to hear, but because we can all read it,
Mhm.
I think we got the gist. I'm going to go off and see you all now. So hold on for a second. Okay, I have some teaching points to make, but what did you get from that?
I like the fact that it was short sentences, and I tried to give space for her to go to the next question.
Okay, what else?
I liked that when she said "and your daughter" and just left it open ended.
Mhm.
Let the woman respond where it led her.
Okay.
But the one comment that the woman said, "Of course," something about my daughter being away, so far away. Of course.
Mm.
I don't know what that might have meant.
Yeah, so that was one of those little things you tucked away.
Mhm.
That's something to come back to. So, there's a first, so Sharon read Greta's opening sort of monologue answer. That had a lot of stuff in it, didn't it?
Mhm.
Mm.
Let me pull it back up. Hold on. All right. Are you seeing the opening monologue?
I
Mhm.
think it's on a back page. Oh,
You see the arrow here?
oh, yeah, yeah.
So, just because Sharon, this was a challenge for us to hear, I'm going to ask that Ginny actually read this as if she's Greta. Would you read this for us?
Sure.
Just that paragraph.
Because you think differently when you're old, differently, and when you are visiting with younger people, they don't see the things you see and that you enjoy. They enjoy other things. I enjoyed those things when I was young, but now, when I'm old, I have my special things that I enjoy. I sit out here and I look at the beautiful hillside and thank God for giving us such beautiful world to live in and to try and make the most of every minute. I meditate. I don't dwell on myself and my problems. I try to think of better things. I try to make the day a good day. Sometimes I wish I was younger and I wish I had done a lot of things that I didn't do. You know, you think about the past and then you have the future to think about. I wish I had been a great musician. I love music and I appreciate music.
Okay. So, hearing that again, being able to read it, um, what do you think about John's decision to simply reflect the very last thing she said?
I don't see, that's a social work technique, and I've already warned everybody, don't do it with me because I'm just gonna walk out. I don't like it.
You don't like that the way what John did?
I don't like social work techniques like that. I don't like that kind of reflection.
I think it's the easy, cheap way to
Mhm.
go.
Yes, it is. You're right. Thank you. And there, you're missing out on learning so much more about that person. Like, what kind of music did you listen to when you were younger? Or what kind of music do you enjoy? Or
Well, and is music even the most important piece of that paragraph?
no,
No.
no.
What else is important?
Well,
Anybody?
I think she says a lot. This is Dottie. I think she says a lot about her faith. It seems to be a big part of her.
She
And
loves
she,
nature. Loves
pardon?
nature. She
Yeah,
loves nature.
yeah.
Her appreciation of nature. Her
Yeah.
philosophy of life is here too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think she demonstrates that she understands she's in a very different place than when she was younger.
Mhm.
Just and she doesn't sound mournful or anything. It's almost like what we talked about last week about being in that latter stage of life where people are on the honeymoon again.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know, she's just enjoying being.
Yeah. Thank you for making that connection.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, normally when I do this, and again, I'm no criticism of you, Sharon. I mean, the internet is what it is today in terms
Yeah.
of our quality of communication. But normally I let this go through the second page fully.
Mm.
And then, so if you read the whole thing, you'll find that the interviewer never returns to any of the subjects in this first paragraph.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
And you'll also find that the interviewer just keeps doing the reflection of the last thing said,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
which is the easy and meaningless way to go, I think. I'll tell you, this is in a book about how to do good life review interviewing. And this
Mm-hmm.
is actually put up as an example of good interviewing.
That was good interviewing. Oh,
No, it sucks.
oh, really?
But I feel bad. I've never met John Kunz, but I'm aware of him. And in the life review area field, he's beloved. But he missed the mark here. And so I don't like to be critical because the poor guy's dead. I don't want to. He's an interesting guy because he was diagnosed with a treatable cancer. but chose to go back to the family farm at age 55 and die.
Mm.
So he's a complicated man. And if I meet him on the other side when I die, I'll be curious to ask about that decision. But anyway, this question down here where Greta is talking about the daughter or visiting family and friends. They live near here. Yes, they live in Duluth. You see them often. Yes, quite often. It's fine if it's used to get a sense of interconnection and how she matters in the experience of these relationships. But he never gets beyond the surface, never.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so here's another one. Ginny, would you read this one for me where it says Greta right here?
On page 30.
Page
Well,
36,
Okay,
Greta.
I'll just go right from here. I think that I remember when we were all at home and lived in a big house, and we had 4 bedrooms, every bedroom occupied with 2 or 3 people. My sister and I had a beautiful big room, and the 2 boys, the 2 rooms together. It's hard for me to see this, I'm sorry. The 2 rooms together and 2 boys in each room, and my mother and father were down on the and my mother and father were down on there was a bedroom on the main floor, so they were away from all this restlessness.
And John says, sounds like it was just perfect. And I'm purposely being mean to John. She's painting this rich scene of embedded family life. And he then voices a value judgment.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing her to stay in that space. So this is an example of how not to listen in life story interviewing is the bottom line. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for sticking with me. Thank you, Sharon and Ginny. So,
I quickly did the math there, and I can see where there'd be all that restlessness.
golly, I'm restless listening to this stuff, I'll tell you. I had some other points I was going to make with those little underlines. We'll forget it. I made the points. So, structuring a life review, how do you do it? Well, at the University of Missouri, where I ran this life review project, I had to give students and their interviewees a structure. So both the students and the interviewees got this document so that they both knew what they were about to do together. I always started it with the 3 to 5 characteristics. Remember, we did this in class session 1. I also actually, because this was going to be produced as a video, I asked that people self-introduce by looking directly at the camera and saying a few basic things about themselves. So that's how the video would start, as a self-introduction. And then I worked through various things. What I often did and encouraged students to do is talk to the person about their current life first, because it builds rapport, and then go to the past life and walk chronologically through. And then I grabbed different life themes. Some of these came directly from James Beeren. We talked about Beeren last week. And then the issue of death and dying I think is very important. I think some broader life review on balance. Are you satisfied with the life you've lived? Are there regrets? Are there things you're particularly proud of? And then that issue of hopes for the future. So this is a guide, one of many guides you'll find in the resource section and in the class folder for today that can help you in your process. This was the student guide that they got in addition to the other one. And this one, because some students needed structure, I had to break it out. So this is what you do in the first 15 minutes. This is what you do next. This is what you do next. And then these are some of the questions you better hit at the end or you're going to lose your grade. So I offer this again, I know it's hard to see on the screen, but the idea is you can look at this for yourself and take from it what you need or want. So we're going to shift into legacy beliefs for our last 30 minutes. And I have a little exercise we're going to do to start. So we're going to think about legacy from the perspective of yourself, but also we're going to think about legacy from the perspective of your parents, because we are very tied to our parents. No, I'm going to skip this. Excuse me. I forgot what that is, and I don't want to go there. All right. So what are legacy beliefs? So I think the identification and clarification of legacy beliefs is part of doing good integrative life story interviewing. And this is my definition. All people have meaningful impacts in the lives of others in the world around them. Some of these impacts live on after death. These are called legacies. And so what I like about my own definition, if I can brag, is that you can put all kinds of stuff into this. I'm not prejudging what is a legacy. Because each of us determine what our own legacies are. We don't get a lot of opportunity to consider our legacies with others. We just don't talk about that very much in our daily lives. And yet I think our legacy beliefs are actually really important. I think they tie into mattering. Because the imprints that I leave are a way of speaking about the fact that I matter. And that's why it was in the UNE scale. Sometimes the discussion of legacy is motivated by death or impending death or an awareness of death. This is a woman I interviewed I interviewed her, who was in hospice care on the cusp of dying. And a lot of our discussion was about her legacy, what she leaves. Legacy-oriented discussion, I think, is therapeutic and really very helpful if we're willing to have it. But it's not easy. Some of you commented about how this is not easy. And I appreciate those that did the discussion board. And you'll see I did comment in response to your posts. I did that at 7 a.m. this morning. So you can go and see what I said. By the way, how was it to do the discussion board for those of you who did it?
I did mine late, Tom, but it was easy. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Gilda. I was surprised that I felt vulnerable in doing it. And I posted mine before I read Ginny's and Mary Ann's. And then I was struck by both the commonalities and the differences in what we had posted. So it was interesting to me that I found it more challenging.
Mm-hmm. It can feel like bragging. Or it can feel like bitching. If you have some negative legacies, and some of us do. Yeah, thank you. So one of the readings for today was this article by Rebecca Allen, who's written about legacy and done some interviewing work. So she formed a legacy project to kind of see if she could actually create it into a formal intervention for palliative care settings, which I think is again, I think it's a time in one's life when thinking about legacy does come into play. And then in the article, she talks about some different people and her experience of interviewing them and their reflections on legacy. Anybody have any comments about this?
I enjoyed reading those. And as I said, the one about the cultural, transmitting cultural information, especially in the Black community, is so important through oral history. And as I said, the use of art and the importance of that, or, you know, not just using oral history and written history, but using, you know, scrapbooks, cookbooks, that kind of thing is important. And the satisfaction and peace I think people got from doing that. Some of those people died within even the study, I believe.
Yeah.
Time frame.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Legacy is a shared experience. Yes, we may have a sense of our own legacies on ourselves, but I think it's in the sharing and the discussion and the exploration, the true meaning and the true psychological benefit comes out. So we're going to do a little exercise now. This relates to some research findings I'm going to share with you. So I want you to choose a parent, and you know, maybe in our room here, most of our parents are dead. I still have a living father who's nearing 90. But choose a parent, mother or father. Okay, set that parent in your mind. Now, your parent left a legacy. You know that legacy because you've witnessed that parent's life and what came after if they've died. Do you believe that you understand your parents' sense of legacy, their imprints as they did, and how much? So number one on this scale would be, as the anchors kind of help you, I'm certain that my understanding of my parents' legacy is very different from what they thought or he or she thought. There's probably very little overlap between how I would define their legacy and how they did, basically. All the way up to 7, where I think I nailed it. I think I understand their legacy, and I think if I described it and they described it separately, they'd be basically the same. Total overlap. This is not this, and there's no right or wrong answer here. So I know it might be hard to guess on this, but I want actually each of you to tell me your number. Tell me your parent, tell me your number, and tell me why you chose that number. I won't call on people, just start talking.
This is
Okay.
Dottie, and I chose my father. And the reason I chose my father was because I grew up in a very non-traditional house. My father actually adopted me. My mom was pregnant, they were married, and he was Black. And so mom had 8 children, 8 boys before I came along. And it was very difficult for them to accept him, or it was easy for me. I was, you know, an infant. And I saw his struggles and I saw his abilities and how we overcame those struggles. But I don't believe that he ever thought that he had any kind of a legacy to leave behind, because a lot of his growing up time, his life on this earth was based in shame.
Wow.
You know, yeah.
So what number did you pick, Dottie?
One.
So that you don't really have what you would likely say about his legacy would be very different from what he would say if we could talk to him.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
This is Melinda. I picked number 7 for my mother, and my mother's been gone since 1997, but we lived distantly after, you know, during my married years. And, but we talked a lot, and she would talk about her legacy and how, what she believed was her legacy from her parents. And one time I actually went to Ohio with her. We didn't see her relative. She was from a German Catholic community there. And just she and I went on a trip in her very last years. And it helped me to understand her so much better as we reminisced and met the relatives and went to the old haunts, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I feel very close to her in that way. And I feel like she told me what her legacy was.
Yeah.
And she suffered with heart disease for many years. She knew she didn't have a lot of years ahead. She was
Yeah.
only 74 when she died.
Thank you. Next.
This
So
is
I think-
Jenny. It
Go
was
ahead,
my mother that I chose. I would say probably a 2. We were very close. We communicated well. But on her death, I had no clue that she was the compassionate friend. There were at least 15 people that she would call every single day. And I had no idea.
Wow.
She was a cancer survivor of 30 years. She had a laryngectomy and spoke with an artificial larynx, tougher than a boiled owl, and just rode a motorcycle, and she was exciting, but I had no clue about the closeness that she had with her friends.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sharon, you were trying to get him and
Yeah, sorry. So I picked that and I did a 5 with him. And I think because I didn't live through it, and I didn't live, he was our historian, and what a storyteller. So his legacy was letting us know what everybody else lived through. But because I didn't live through it, it's hard to understand for me why he was always moved to tears when he would talk about his parents or other relatives and all the challenges they had to live through. So
yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Who's next?
This is Mary Ann. I chose my dad, and it's probably a 2. And you have to put it from a frame that my dad was born in 1897. Didn't have me until he was 57.
Wow.
So he was old enough to be a grandfather, even though he was a father. Very stoic, traditional Maynard, who did not talk about much of anything. So he was in World War I. I know nothing about that experience or his life, and I just know him from our interactions and what he did. So what his legacy is, he never talked about it.
Yeah. Wow. So I've done this exercise in groups before, and the same thing happens. We have the full range of answers. Is there somebody else left to go?
Yes, this is Gilda. I also chose my father, who died young at 47 from a heart attack. So I chose a 3. I often wonder what my father's legacy would have been if had he lived longer. But I see it in, he was from a large Italian family and he was the oldest. And I just recently visited some of my Italian cousins, and I see his influence in the way that our family, that the Nardone family still interacts with each other. So yeah, it's an interesting question. So
Thank you. Has everybody gone? Remember, I can't see you, so I'm just waiting. Okay. Yeah, I would choose my father. And it's interesting. I would probably choose a 5. Because I really do think I could probably do a decent job of articulating what he might say. But I also understand elements of his legacy negative elements, to be very honest, that he probably would not even be aware of. And so there's some baggage in that, but I think I could articulate what he believes pretty well. So there's a model of legacy beliefs that was published that has been influential in my work by Hunter and Rolls. These are two big names in the gerontology field. This model breaks down legacy into different buckets. So, and they developed their model by actually interviewing older adults about their perceptions of legacy. I took it to another level and actually interviewed parents and children and compared them, which is basically what you just did. So you kind of participated in my study without even knowing it. Although I'm not doing this work anymore. This is just for fun. But Hunter and Rolls talks about a biological legacy. I mean, we all inherit the genes, but we also inherit the health and health behaviors of our parents to some extent. And our bodies, you know, I have the extra weight around my middle that is exactly like my dad at my age. We inherit material things, material legacies. So objects, possessions, symbols, maybe things we've created. And, you know, I have a number of my mother's things. My mother's been gone 10 years now, 11 years actually. And I have a number of her items around the house as physical elements of her legacy. And then Hunter and Rolls talk about a values-based legacy, and values might be personal things that the person held dear that was unique to them. It could be social values, and I heard this in the story, in whoever shared about their father sharing all the family stories. That's kind of a social or perhaps a cultural set of values that are broader than just the individual, but are all part of legacy. And I applied this model in this research, and this was the publication that came from it. I did this work actually cross-nationally with researchers in South Africa because I had an ability to travel there. And in fact, my primary partner, Tuli Mathembu, came and visited me in St. Louis. This is a picture of the Chuck Berry statue in the Del Mar Loop in St. Louis. So he came back to visit me. And I can post this article if you're interested in reading it. But we had a number of aims and questions in the research. We wanted to develop a way to look at legacy beliefs in family dyads, which we did. We wanted to pilot test that approach, both in interview and questionnaire forms. And then we really wanted to understand whether adult children, and we actually interviewed some adult grandchildren with grandparents as well. But do they see their legacy understandings the same or different? But the beauty of doing a legacy interview with an adult child independent of the parent, and then with the parent, we could actually do the comparison that we can't do because our parents are dead. So, so we were curious about what this would mean. So we recruited dyads. We started with 14. I'm just going to tell you about the initial 14 interviews because of time. I don't have gobs of time, but I am going to play a little bit of 2 interviews. So this is a mother, age 78, talking about her legacy. And then we're going to meet the daughter. Now, I have to block the faces here because I technically don't have permission to show these, but there's no way you can know from listening to a person who they are. So the next question is beginning to move into this concept of legacy. So all of us die eventually. While alive, we touch and impact the lives of others and the world around us. These impacts are often called legacies. With this brief definition, what does legacy mean to you? What does the concept mean to you? If you're to put it in your own words.
Probably giving of yourself to your children, or Lori, I should say. And it's interesting because a lot of times we're doing things and I see her doing it it exactly as I do it. As I thought about myself when my mother was living, I know I did a lot of things like her as well.
So you see evidence of your influence in how she behaves sometimes.
Oh yes, I do. I do.
What else might like? Okay, so that's the mother. Now we'll meet the daughter. And the daughter is. So all of us die eventually. While alive, we touch and impact the lives of others and the world around us. These impacts are called legacies. With this brief definition, what does this concept of legacy mean to you in your own words? What does legacy mean?
Being able to share something that I find of value to, whatever it is, even if it's teaching my grandchildren how to create art, to do, activities. I like to take people places. I do it through, if my grandchildren aren't available to it, I get exchange students and share all of St. Louis with them. It's important to me. So that's how I feel about a legacy, is that it may not always be financial. It's oftentimes creative or teaching or sharing of the wonder that I see out there.
So it's interesting that, the mother talked about the actual reflection that she sees of herself in her daughter. The daughter talked about more the transmissive legacy, transmissive in the sense of giving to the next generation. So the way I structured these interviews was with handouts. So after this initial conversation, I would present each one of these handouts, and we would talk about each legacy type for the parent. So the parent would talk about her perception of personal, social, cultural, and I added religious, spiritual, even though that's not part of the Hunter and Rolls model. To me, it was a glaring omission. And then we would work through, and what I would do is quantify later on all the different legacy nuggets or bits of information across these categories. And then the same thing with the daughter. Lori answered not for herself, but what she thinks of her mother's legacy. And so they did this, each of them did the rating. And then we transcribed and we did thematic analysis. So here, this is a different pair, mother-daughter pair. So the video for this pair was not as easy to quick show. So, but it's a mother 79 and daughter 57. These were all the legacy nuggets from the mother. These are all the legacy nuggets from the daughter for the mother. And then I added a new form of legacy as we went through the analysis, and I called that personality legacy and that's actually very much evident in that first clip. My daughter behaves like I do. And I said, that's where I think that legacy is important. But if we take this diagram and then we map it as a Venn, and actually I shared this back with this mother-daughter pair, and they were amazed. This mother-daughter pair were rated in the 6 to 7 range. They thought they knew. But when we actually talked about it and compared, they had very different views of the mother's legacy. It was fascinating. I know I'm moving through this quickly. We can pick up with this topic next week too. So if we looked at everybody in the first 14 pairs, so MD is mother-daughter, MS is mother-son, okay? And then I've got their ages, and I actually have race because we did this in South Africa too. M is multiracial, which is was the folks we interviewed there. And then we compared their definitions of legacy, whether they were similar or not. And then these were their overlap ratings. Okay. So if we look at the 79 and 59 here, or 57, here they are. So the parent predicted that the daughter would get her at a 6, and the daughter predicted she would get the parent at a 5, so pretty high. But they actually had a very low sense of shared legacy. The unique legacies tend to be much higher, even in people that believe they know the parent well. I know I'm running through this fast. Any thoughts about this?
Can you say that last statement that you just said?
We might believe that we know the legacy of a parent as an adult child, or we might believe our child knows our legacy, and we might rate that overlap as high. Remember, 7 is the highest it can be on my scale. This is one where the parent said, my child has it, nailed it. But then look at the overlap, 15%. Totally wrong. So the punchline here is no matter how well you think you might know the legacy of another person, even someone as intimately close as a parent, you probably don't. And what does that say? Well, that's an invitation to life review, right? It's an invitation to have the conversation.
And the sad part about it is many of us can't have that conversation now.
Yeah. So if you still can, do it. But many of you have children. You can have it with them, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So so not every pairing got the follow-up where we would present the Venn diagram. That wasn't part of the initial project. But one of the couples, I remember when I did share it, they were like, oh my God, we have so much we've got to talk about. And so, and the mom said, I'm taking him out for pizza next week. We're going to talk this through. Now, this can be a double-edged sword because my dad has left some negative legacies or less desirable legacies. Well, one of his less desirable legacies is I've inherited his bad teeth. So I hate going to the dentist. I mean, that's a biological legacy, but I can tell some stories in the more interpersonal space and values space that where I've had to go to some psychotherapy to deal with. Many of us have to deal with that. So, these conversations can happen to the extent that there's safety and trust, obviously. All right, we're done with our third class. How's this going? Is this what you signed up for?
Actually, this is Dottie. I love it. It's a life's journey, part of which, I've written a lot of life stories for different people, but not, and some of my own I've started, but that is the most difficult for me, I find, writing my own.
I agree with Dottie that how wonderful this is. But this last little bit, I think of myself and my own daughter, who from day one has always seemed to clash, even though people say we're actually very much alike. And I think she's very well educated, very bright, Stanford University, honors student, a lawyer. But I feel that she does not see me or know me from the things she says about me or to me. So I think I would need a counselor nearby to even go say, this is the way I see my life. And she lives locally, but we are somewhat estranged. We get together for family things and this and that, but I've come to the point where I just am so uncomfortable knowing what kind of, she gets very upset with me. And I feel like she doesn't really know me, even though she tells me what people say about me, like nice things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm very
So,
I'd
so
like to.
Melinda, I thank you for sharing that, and I appreciate your vulnerability. I'm trying to model some vulnerability here too. You know what? It might be interesting, and you could even report back to the group if you do this. Why don't I'll post the article, the Muser Methembo article. Why don't you just email your daughter? I'm taking this class. And we just learned about this legacy beliefs thing. I think you would find this real interesting. Love to talk to you about it someday. Send her the article and see what happens.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Tom. I think I could use that right now with that relationship with my son. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Thanks.
All right. Well, and then we've got 2 weeks to hear what happens, if anything. I'd love to find out. So I'll send you the article, or I'll post it into this week's folder right after class. How's that?
Thank you.
It's good.
It might already be there. I just don't remember. If it is already there, you can just pull it. But if not, I'll post it. So anyway, a real pleasure. You are a dynamite group. I am thoroughly enjoying this journey with all of you. Thoroughly. So you've got a friend in me. Each one of you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
well.
Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Take care.
You're exceeding my expectations, Tom. Thank you for everything.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.